Hey everybody, welcome. Before I forget, if you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe. If you want more details on any of the thing I'm talking about today, the blog is actually linked in the description section. Because there are some things that I will not go over in detail. So, we're kind of in a season right now where we're talking about different things we see in the grocery store and kind of decreasing the confusion around our food. My mission in life is feeding kids and critters. That's what I spend pretty much all day doing. So here's a little bit about decreasing the confusion around your meat that you find in the store. The grocery store shouldn't be confusing, but it has gotten very confusing. Keep in mind, any label that you find requires extra verification, which is going to increase the price of your label. That's why a lot of times the items that don't have any special labels, they're your cheapest. Because they don't require the extra verification. Some of these labels are completely BS. They're solely a marketing tool. They mean absolutely nothing. And we're going to kind of just break that down. As far as the most common labels, why they're there, and if they're really any better for you or not. That is an entire discussion in and of itself, so I'm just going to touch very briefly on it, and that's it. Because we could do an entire 20-minute conversation on that alone. So, first one, grass-fed. This label you're primarily going to see in beef or lamb. And this means that the animal has not been fed grain or grain byproducts. They've had access to continual pasture during their growing season. They are permitted to feed hay when the grass isn't growing. So like fall through winter, when there's no grass available, they can get hay. This is a challenge for a lot of producers. You're seeing more and more of that grass-fed label as consumers have demanded it. However, it is a huge challenge because it takes a lot of grass to finish a steer out. And a lot of people don't like the taste of it, I'll be honest. We in America have gotten really used to that grain-fed taste, and when you have a grass-fed animal, it changes the fat content, which gives it a more gamey taste to your meat. It's different. Whether it's more nutritious or not is debatable. Depends on who you talk to and what the science says. We're not going to go there. Today's not the time for that. Maybe another day. Natural label. This means that the food is minimally processed. When you're looking at meat, kind of a bogus label. Most meats are minimally processed because they don't contain preservatives or artificial ingredients. Exceptions of that would be if you're buying hot dogs, sausage, Polish dogs, brats, jerky, those types of things. They're going to be processed. Most, if you're buying just meat, the meat, nothing smoked, nothing added to it, just the meat, it has been cut up and frozen. So yeah, whether the label says it or not, this is mostly a marketing tool label, but you can always flip that package over. Every package is required by law to have a list of ingredients. So just read it. If you're really curious about what's actually in it, read it. No antibiotics. This label requires a lot of extra documentation. It also requires that the animal has never ever been given antibiotics its entire life. If the animal gets sick, you also see this label pop up in milk. If the animal gets sick and needs antibiotics, because sickness happens, like, let's be honest, they're kicked off the program. They can no longer be sold as an antibiotic-free animal. We'll talk about this more when we get to milk, but the cows actually have X amount of time and they have to leave the dairy. They're not allowed to stay. this is a label you're going to pay a premium for, because many producers are not willing to do the extra paperwork, honestly. And keeping all the calves 100% healthy all of the time is difficult. It's kind of like trying to keep kids healthy all the time. At some point, you're probably going to need antibiotics at some point in your life. Not saying that we should use them all the time, but you're going to need them eventually at some point. No hormones or no hormones added. This label means that the animal has not been given growth hormones, also called implants if you're familiar with industry terminology. The producer must submit the extra paperwork guaranteeing that that animal has never had an implant or been fed added hormones. All meat has hormones naturally. All your food has hormones naturally. Yes, even the cabbage that you just ate. It's a matter of the quantities, really. Is there a difference in the end product? There is some. It's a very small amount. Whether that affects the food you're eating, again, that's a discussion for another time. That's a whole nother discussion we could take 20 minutes on. So, we're not going to go there. Organic. This is a very inclusive label. It means no growth hormones, so it's kind of a combination of several labels here. No growth hormones, no antibiotics, no genetically modified crops or animal byproducts were fed ever. In cattle, I think sheep, maybe goats. I don't know about pigs, honestly. But you can't feed back to ruminant animals, so that'd be cattle, sheep, goats. You cannot feed back a ruminant byproduct. The only time you see these things pop up is when, a lot of times in your trace mineral packages, and you're trying to get, or protein, chickens get it a lot actually, so in your chicken, it's called a bone and blood meal. They dehydrate it down, grind it up. It's a really good source of calcium, extra protein. A lot of those iron and those minerals that they need are really readily available that way, and then you don't have another waste product. But that can't be fed under the organic label. So basically the organic label is the no antibiotic label, plus the no hormones, plus the added only non-GMO foods. These are more than likely going to be your highest priced meats in the store. Why? Sourcing those food sources for the animals is expensive. Plus the extra documentation to sell the animals as such, keeping track of anything they've gotten antibiotic wise, kicking them out, selling them then, keeping track of all their food, everything, and the verification for all that. Most producers aren't really willing or have the time to do that extra paperwork for really a fairly small increase in profit for the producer. If you really are really truly concerned about your meat and where it's coming from, find a local producer. Most states, I think pretty much everywhere, there are ways you can buy direct from a producer. Find one that matches your values, grows the animals the way you want them, and buy straight from them. You're going to know exactly where it's in your meat, where it came from. You're going to build a relationship with a farmer who can then answer a lot of your other questions about that product. And you're probably actually going to save yourself some money too. So for anybody there are lots of online vendors that you can now buy those from. Chop Local is one that I know of. Barn to Door is another, and they have services all over the country. You're getting to be able to ship meat specifically in a lot more places. So that's all I have for today, and I'll talk to you later. Until next time, I'll just be feeding kids and critters.